I'm here with Sister Della Marie, the T.O.R. sister. Tell us, starting with the full title of your community.
Okay, we're the Franciscan Sisters, Third Order Regular of Penance of the Sorrowful Mother in Toronto, Ohio.
And you're there near the campus of Steubenville, and over the years you've done a lot of work on campus, right, with the summer conferences and things?
Yes, I've been present at them just to be a vocational witness, and I've worked on campus during the year too, but have been present at a lot of the conferences during the summertime.
And can you tell us about the charism of your community?
Yes, it's with being with Mary at the foot of the cross. So crucified love, mercy, contemplation, and poverty are our charisms. And so we do evangelization and works of mercy, works with the poor. So
there's a lot of work in Steubenville, right, directly?
yes, it's a very depressed area. The steel mills were closed, and so there's a lot of poverty and a lot of unemployment. And a lot of gangs and drugs and prostitution there, actually. Though it's a small city, it has a lot of things that are in big cities.
When I think of like Mary at the foot of the cross, I always think of spiritual motherhood. Jesus gives her to us at that moment. Can you talk about that aspect of religious life for a woman?
Yes, very much. Women are called to be mothers, and so we don't really give that part of femininity up when we become a sister. Spiritual motherhood is one of the biggest draws, I think, for women. And I know for myself personally, that's how I felt called to religious life, was God calling me to be a spiritual mother. That there's many children whose own mothers do not care for their souls. And so that's what my life is. It's interceding for souls so they can get to heaven. And that's the most important thing that children need, that souls need, is to get to heaven. And it's very hidden, but it's very fruitful. And there's little times when the Lord shows us, you know, that our life is bearing fruit, but a lot of it's faith, knowing that souls need our prayers and that they benefit from our prayers.
Right. Can you tell us about one of those moments that it was kind of revealed to you, or you saw some fruit?
I shared one recently with you. One time there was a boy on our steps when I came home from work, and he just needed prayers. His family was very sick, and his mother was dying, and his grandmother had just recently passed away, and a single mother. And was just able to pray with him, and just to see his gratitude, and just to know that we were there, you know, for him. And so many times people see us in our habit, and they come up and just tell us things that they need prayers for. And then they go away just so grateful, and they feel like they've been close to God, and that He's listened to them through us. And so, yeah, numerous times really in my life.
Well, how do you explain it to young women, that concept of there's something in them that's made for that, but yet sometimes you have to explain it to them as well. What do you say?
I just explain kind of the different roles of, you know, being a mother, and that it's a natural call that we have, you know, as women, to be a mother and to want to nurture and to care for life. And this is a supernatural call, so it's not the norm. Most women, you know, experience that call. All of us do, to be a nurturer and to be a mother. But this is something that's deep, and you have to really listen, deep in your heart, and spend time in prayer to get in touch with that. And then the Lord will show you that you can be with Him working for souls and be a mother that way. And it's more supernatural and spiritual, but it's very similar. And it's really complementary to physical motherhood. And physical mothers are also called to care for their children's souls also. So it's kind of a little simple way, I guess.
Right, and I like to think of, you know, a woman's heart. It's a big, sensitive heart, and that Jesus has got a lot of stuff to fill with that heart, doesn't he? You never run out of children, or he can like take as much as we can give, right? And it's always a beautiful thing. I know sometimes women feel like they're maybe too much, or they're overwhelming, but Jesus can take all of that and bring a marvelous fruitfulness out of that, can He?
Yes, and I know a lot of women who are feeling called towards religious life. There's a sense of having a husband and children, it's not enough, and there's more that they want. And I know for myself, as a child even, I wanted to have tons of children, and the Lord showed me later that was that call to spiritual motherhood, to have many children. And so a lot of times that's kind of something he places in someone's heart. I believe at baptism even, for that greater motherhood that's with him. And yeah, he refreshes us and gives us the strength for it. Otherwise, if we weren't spending that time with him in prayer and gazing on his face, we wouldn't have the strength for all the things that are out there to pray for and intercede for. It could be overwhelming. But with him, it's his burden is light, and he gives us that joy and that energy for really being who he's calling us to be.
I don't know if you could speak to this, but I know, I'm not going to say as a man, religious life and discerning priesthood, the courage, I mean, the culture doesn't really encourage that, or it gives you contrary messages of selfishness, self-centeredness, and doing your own thing. And I always think about women sometimes too with the message of like 70s feminism. It seems so contrary to the gospel. And did you have to kind of untwist that in your own life, maybe messages that you were fed?
Definitely. I know, just getting into high school and things, placing your worth in how you look and what you wear and what music you listen to, and just kind of getting caught up in those things and seeking for love and seeking that in persons and needing persons to be my self-worth. So I really fell into that in high school. And yet there was something more, and there was a lot of confusion and unhappiness really in that. And at the same time, I knew the Lord and I had a relationship with him, but I was afraid that he would ask too much of me, or that I wouldn't be satisfied or happy if I followed what he wanted me to do. So I was kind of afraid. I was afraid he might be calling me to be a sister, actually. And so, but when I finally really surrendered and realized that God was really sold out for my happiness, and began to trust him more, and experience after experience of showing that he was trustworthy and cared about me, enabled me to open my heart more and more to listen to him, and realize and really see the emptiness and just the confusion and the lack of peace that I felt when I was not listening to him and in one with him. And so when I began to really follow him and trust him, there was just a great peace, and it enabled me to really look deeper and let go of those surface things that I kind of held on to as my self-worth, and see how my real worth came from the fact that he died for me and that he was in love with me. And he just really changed my life around when I was able to finally surrender. And he could have called me to marriage at that point, or to religious life. But I could see at that time that really the deepest thing I was longing for was that to be a spiritual mother and to really die for love of him through the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, that was the only thing that was really going to satisfy me. But I had to really let go of the things the world said were important and go deeper.
Does that letting go, is that a one-time deal, or you still struggle with taking back that self-will? And
it definitely is a daily journey, and you realize that you're holding on to more things than you ever thought you were, and it's like, wow, there's continually, in community life, it brings up those things that you're still attached to. So there's always room to grow more and deeper trust with him. And I find it gets more and more beautiful as religious life goes on, and the commitment and the Lord's faithfulness, that he continues to bring freedom and greater wholeness and joy in the life. So it's definitely a process.
And with the young women you work with that might be prospective candidates for your community, are there certain challenges you see today that young women face in answering the call?
I think the biggest thing is really noise, and there's just so much social media that can really tie them up and keep them from really listening and developing a relationship with the Lord and even with other people. They are constantly on Facebook and different things, so it's much harder for them to actually take time to listen and to know themselves and to know what God's calling them to be. So the social media is wonderful, but it also, I think, presents a huge challenge for women at the same time.
All right, well, thanks so much for chatting with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.